Bruiser asks, Father, can you briefly speak on the seven deadly sins? Are they automatically grave sins or venial sins? And does this depend on their frequency or severity?
First of all, when we speak of these seven deadly sins, what we're really talking about is, in terms of Catholic theology, and capital sins, because they are each one is a caput in the Latin, that is to say a head or a source, a category of other sins. These are traditionally classed. And I think, as the questioner already understands, no, not every sin in these categories is either automatically mortal or venial. They can be venial or mortal, depending on the greater or lesser severity of the sin, which takes into account state of soul and knowledge of the one committing the sin, their knowledge of the act, their will, the gravity of the matter itself, of what's the gravity, the graveness or severity of what's being, just the act itself, what's being done. First of all, it's grave matter. One committing the sin has sufficient knowledge of what they're doing. They know enough to know that it's very serious. And finally, that there's a full consent of their will to the sin. So that's the short definition of a mortal sin. And failing any one of those categories, the person committing the sin is not totally personally responsible for the full weight of a mortal sin. So someone could be tempted, for example, by impure thoughts. That's thoughts against the sixth commandment. Thoughts coming from the category of sin, or the deadly sin of lust. Right? That's a struggle that many of us, probably the majority of the human race, face at some point or another here in our existence on Earth. Many people struggle with it all. For the greater portion of their lives. Someone might have there might be present in their mind impure thoughts for, several seconds or something like that, or even potentially longer. Well, obviously that's troubling, and we have to fight the good spiritual fight. But the simple fact that, those kinds of thoughts have been in someone's mind for several seconds or longer doesn't necessarily mean that that person is guilty of a mortal sin of lust, because they may have been, they may not have given a full consent of the will to those thoughts during that time. They may have been simply slow to expel those temptations from their mind during that time. And that this particular category, it can be difficult. It can be quite obscure. So that's why I always encourage penitents, just in general, to mention that such sins where there's obscurity, where there's lack of clarity, to mention them in the sacrament of confession if it seems that it's likely that they've committed a mortal sin. And leave it up to God. Leave it up to God to absolve you through the absolution pronounced by the priest, if indeed you are guilty of a mortal sin.